very good afternoon to you, Africa. My name is Adoris Barra, and thank you so much once again for joining me on Zim Social Network News, where we give you undiluted news. If you're watching us from our Facebook page, Zim Social Network, you can also follow us on our YouTube channel, Zim Social Network. Now let's take a look at the news headlines for today. Miss Mutsvangwa attacks the church and the ethnicity of the bishop who wrote the letter. And the next story, the resurrection of Baba Jukwa's spirit. Robert Martin Gumbra's prison nightmare is now set to end in just 5 years after the court considered his appeal. In other news, Mail and Guardian African newspaper reports. And lastly, we'll take a look at the Zim dancer icon Wing D, who has disclosed that the country's music industry was in a serious crisis due to the impact of COVID-19. Let's take a look at the news in detail. Moving on the next video clip, following the attack on the church and the ethnicity of the bishop who wrote the letter. This attack on the church is uncalled for. The government labels the pastoral letter that raised concerns over rights violations as evil and misguided. Raising tribal sentiments won't help but worsens the crisis in Zimbabwe. Point of no return. Critics have raised concerns saying that it is a matter of regret that instead of addressing the grave concerns raised by the Catholic Church, Ms. Mutsvangwa opts to stoke tribal tensions and attack the ethnicity of the bishop who wrote this letter. We object to tribalism in our society. Before we give you the Mutsvangwa clip, let's hear what the Reverend has to say to our very own President Emerson Mnangagwa. Reverend Dr. Kenneth Mtata tweeted, sending a warning to Emerson Mnangagwa in a tweet that reads, "We knew the situation would escalate, but not at this rate." The tone responded to ZCBC, Zimbabwe Catholic Bishop Conference letter is worrying. We hope President Emerson Mnangagwa will tone things down. At this rate, we will be crashing sooner than later. That was a warning from Reverend Dr. Kenneth Mtata to our very own President Emerson Mnangagwa. Now let's watch the Miss Mutsvangwa video clip.
We vehemently object to and strongly condemn the pastoral letter of Archbishop Lovu and his coterie of Catholic prelates. Its evil message reeks with all the vices that have perennially pulled the progress of Africa. It trumpets petty tribal feuds and narrow regionalist agendas. That it does to sow seeds to international strife as a prelude to civil war and national disintegration. Indeed, Archbishop Lovu dons the robes of Archbishop Anastasia Seromba, who was the chief spiritual ideologist and violent practitioner of the 1994 Hutu-Tutsi genocide of Rwanda.
Moving on to the resurrection of Baba Jukwa's spirit. After the arrest of Hopo Ching'ono, we have seen the rebirth of Baba Jukwa's spirit reincarnating in Jonathan Moyo. Former Information Minister Jonathan Moyo alleged that President Emerson Mnangagwa and Foreign Affairs Minister Sibusiso Moyo have gained over $1.2 billion from the government coffers through corrupt ways. We are still waiting for a response from the government, from the President's office, and we will update you on that one. The former minister, Professor Jonathan Moyo, claimed that he will expose the real reason behind the dismissal of Minister Chasi as a Minister of Energy by President Emerson Mnangagwa. Be advised that we will produce another detailed video regarding ministers' exposures. Incarcerated Robert Martin Gumbra's prison nightmare is now set to end in just 5 years after the High Court considered his appeal and proceeded to slash his sentence by half. The rape-accused Robert Martin Gumbra, end-time message leader, was serving an effective 40-year jail term, but he will now have to serve half of the years following a successful appeal against sentence. The polygamous 64-year-old was initially slapped with a 50-year jail term, but will now have to serve just 20 years. Court considered his appeal and proceeded to slash his sentence by half. His lawyer, Love Momadugu, said that Thursday he might have 5 years remaining, considering the remission of sentence. In the magistrate's court, he was given 50 years. Before 10 years were suspended conditionally. He has been in jail since 2014, meaning that he has already served a part of the remaining sentence, also taking into account what it is called remission of sentence. You will find out he is left with about 5 years, said Madugu, his lawyer. The appeal was heard by Justice Charles Wungwe and Edith Mushore. In other news, Mail and Guardian Africa newspaper reports Zimbabwe in a bid to defuse the latest crisis in which the government has engaged in a vicious crackdown on opponents, journalists, and the freedoms of speech, association, and protest has been widely welcomed. You can listen to the voice clip that is playing soon.
And, as the big brother neighbor next door, South Africa is the obvious actor to do. It may be guaranteed that Ramaphosa's envoys, Sidney Mufamadi, a former government minister turned academic, and Baleka Vete, a former deputy president of South Africa, former speaker of the National Assembly and former chairperson of the African National Congress, ANC, were sent off to Harare with a very limited brief. They were accompanied by advocate Noko Ramatlodi and diplomat Nemisochi. The mission quickly ran into trouble. The envoys returned to South Africa without meeting members of the opposition. Observers and activists are rightly skeptical about how much will come out of it. The best that is seriously hoped for is that South African diplomacy will bring about immediate relief. This would include the release of journalists, opposition figures, and civil society activists from jail, promises to withdraw the military from the streets, perhaps even some jogging of the Mnangagwa government to meet with its opponents, then to make some trifling concessions. After all, the pattern is now well established. Crisis, intervention, promises by the ZANU-PF regime to behave, and then relapse after a decent interval to the sort of behavior that prompted the latest crisis in the first place. But in a previous era, South Africa once made Zimbabwe's dependence count. South Africa has done it once, back in 1976.
In our next story, the Zim dancehall icon Winky D has disclosed that the country's music industry was in a serious crisis due to the impact of COVID-19, whose lockdown measures have included the prohibition of public gathering. For the majority of musicians in Zimbabwe, public live shows have traditionally been their major income stream. Winky D's manager Jonathan Banda said to a greater extent, Zimbabwe was lagging behind in terms of requisite technology for ideal online shows. In our last story, social news from the Zim social network team. We would like to wish Olinda Mainandi a happy belated birthday as the Zim social network team, and a special thanks to Uncle Jed and Auntie Jenny for attending this birthday ceremony. That's all we have for the news today. Thank you so much for tuning into Zim social network news. My name is Doris Vera. Up until next time, it's bye-bye.